Until recently, the only choice for electrical power in Boston was to pay the utility company. We still make payments to the same distributor, but we can choose among energy sources with different prices and different amounts of energy that's renewable. Those options are now changing with the introduction of the city's Community Choice Electricity Program. To tell us how it works is the director of the city's Municipal Energy Unit, David Musselman. Thank you very much for being with us, David.
My pleasure.
David, to begin with, why is the city changing things?
Um, there's a number of reasons that we decided to adopt the program. As you know, the city has adopted a carbon-free goal by 2050. And one of the mechanisms that was identified as a part of the Carbon Free Boston report that was issued, I guess it's now almost 2 years ago, was to change how electricity is generated and used within the city. And in our most recent carbon action plan, we identified municipal aggregation as an opportunity for the city to be involved in selecting suppliers who can provide a greater degree of renewable electricity to citizens or residents of the city. And so that's part of our process, is to get in to be able to select a higher level of renewable component of the electricity than is required by state law. And by doing that, we'll reduce the overall emissions of climate change gases, global climate change gases, or greenhouse gases from city residents and operations.
Well, consumers have the right currently to do that as individual shoppers, as it were. If the city's buying in bulk, what does that mean for the prices, you think?
We're hoping that by being able to buy collectively that we will get better pricing. And of course, the city is doing it on a not-for-profit basis. The other competitive suppliers that are out there, are largely for-profit businesses, and so they have to make some money. We don't. We are looking to find the best price that we can and pass it through to our residents, and don't intend to, we'll cover the cost of the program, but there's no profit built into this. So that's one of the aspects that we think will make us more competitive than the other suppliers.
Well, if you go back to the old model, the utility company just being both the distributor and oftentimes the source, you think, well, there's enormous leverage there too. So wouldn't that save even more money? Or is that necessarily the case?
So the way it works now, I mean, it depends. Back in the old days, of course, they had to own their own generation and they were allowed to make a profit on that generation. So they didn't necessarily have the incentive to work to this goal. But since 1997, when they not deregulated, restructured the industry, Eversource is no longer in the generation business. So they go out and they obtain supply, and everybody who hasn't selected a supplier themselves is still served by Eversource. And one of the advantages that we have over Eversource is Eversource has a very regulatorily specified way of acquiring supply. They have to bid it on in a certain schedule. They have to buy it in certain quantities. And so they don't have a lot of flexibility about when they go into the market and how they structure their supply. We will have that freedom going forward. We can follow the market. When it looks like prices are particularly low, we'll be able to go in and lock in a longer term price. So every year, Eversource's basic service price changes. For residential customers, it changes on July 1st and January 1st. Ours will be able to lock in for longer term, so we can offer some price stability. And we're hoping that because we'll have more flexibility about when we go into the market, that we can affect some greater savings by being able to buy at times when prices are more favorable.
Well, there's one common assumption that hasn't totally gone away, and that is if something is more environmentally responsible, it must be more expensive. Does that apply here?
We don't think it does. There are a variety of reasons why. I mean, some of it are, there have been changes in regulations which have driven up the cost of some of the uh, more traditional supplies. The price of the technology, we've seen solar generating prices come down dramatically. I mean, back, I can remember back to the Apollo days when they had the little, they built the little panels on the, space or on the satellites, and those would cost like millions of dollars to make a little panel. And now, you can get a panel for, tens of dollars. And so we're seeing, downward pressure on the supply. We're seeing upward pressure on some of the regulatory requirements that coal, oil, and natural gas are going to be facing over time. And then, there's also supply aspects of, here in New England, we're at the end of the natural gas system, and natural gas tends to set the price in New England, and which is why we have higher prices generally in the winter. So there are a number of factors that are sort of pushing. And then on top of that, there are regulations which require larger amounts of renewables to be included, under state law. We're hoping to go beyond that, and there are some incentive programs that are helping to make it more cost effective for solar and wind, which will make it more affordable for us to get those renewables as well.
Well, what many of us in Boston have caught on to at this point is that if you want more renewables in your energy source, then you can opt into that. But this program is going to be different. This is about the choice to opt out. So can you explain that?
Sure. So under state law, if a municipality decides to begin what we call aggregation, and here in Boston, we're calling it Boston Community Choice Electricity, we are allowed to essentially take over all of the basic service customers that Eversource currently has. And unless you do something, you move over and become a customer of the city of Boston on our standard product. And our standard product is basically a product that has the renewable portfolio standard, which is the minimum amount of renewable that the state has, plus an additional 10% of renewable component that we're going to achieve by buying renewable energy certificates. That price is currently below Eversource's price that will go into effect on January 1 and will be in effect through June 30th. And we hope that it will also be below the price that Eversource will have, after July 1 through December, and then we will be entering into another contract to replace that. We recognize not everybody, wants to pay for or is able to pay for that additional component of renewables. So we do also offer an opportunity for somebody to opt down to a product that is equivalent to Eversource's in terms of renewable component, but is even less expensive than Eversource's price. So we can offer you a better price for the same renewable content than Eversource is offering. For people who are able to and choose to, we're also offering an opportunity for people to opt up to a product that will represent 100% renewable component at a premium. So you will be paying more than Eversource, but it gives you the opportunity, if you so choose, to make an environmental statement and to reduce your global impact through your electrical use.
When do consumers have to make a decision about this?
So there was a mailing that went out this week. So people should be getting letters explaining this process. They have until January 11th to act. And if they don't do anything, then we will begin enrolling everybody on January 11th, or if they opt up or opt down, we'll do all those enrollments between January 11th and February 1st, and we'll begin serving customers with the next meter read that happens in February. But one important difference between our program and all of the other competitive suppliers is you can leave the City of Boston's program at any time with no penalty. So if you decide later that you don't want to be a part of the program, there's a simple process for contacting us, and we'll drop you off of our program and either switch you back to Eversource or switch you to whoever you have selected as your alternative supplier. And there's no penalty for doing that. Similarly, if you opt out now and decide later that you really want to be in the program, you can rejoin or join the program at any time. So,
finally, David, we should mention that for people who have more questions, you have a webinar coming up. So please let us know when that's going to be available.
Sure, we have actually scheduled, I think, 11 webinars in all that'll be occurring beginning next Monday, December 14th. We're going to be offering seminars or webinars almost every day at noon and at 6 o'clock. And we have a schedule. They'll all be offered in English, but in each of them we'll have 2 other languages offered. And several of them will also have American Sign Language and captioning, because we really want people to know what's happening, to be able to understand what is going to happen, and to get their questions answered. We also have a website, and we also have, the schedule of webinars is included in the letter, along with instructions on how to sign up for it. So we have a lot of different ways for people to learn about it. And we're hoping that people will come and join us for one of the seminars and get whatever questions they have answered.
Well, thank you very much for taking the time to explain this. It's important because it affects just about every household in the city. So I'm glad you're able to share that with our viewers.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you very much for giving us this opportunity.
That's David Musselman from the city's Municipal Energy Unit.